You're listening to a podcast appearing on the Two Guys Talking Podcast Network.
Welcome to the Green Gab Podcast, a place to gab with people rocking it in green. Green homes, green living, green companies. Join Marla Esser Cloos, the green home coach and author of Living Green Effortlessly, Simple Choices to a Better Home, and Tony Pratt, the Director of Builder Relations at The Sound Room. Here are your hosts, Marla and Tony.
Well, we are gabbing on the Green Gab Podcast, and we are excited to be here. I'm Marla, and
I'm Tony.
Hi.
Hello. It's been so long. Hi, Sam. How are you today?
So we did a ton of sessions live at the St. Louis Home and Garden Show, and that has carried us through most of the year.
No, and
2017. So since you stay out perpetually, we kind of have to remind you guys where we are.
The studio looks phenomenal.
I know. I haven't figured out how to properly convey in voice and audio how something looks, but it looks cool. Actually, it looks very warm.
Yeah, just walking in, we could tell that you guys have really did some nice little changes here, additions. The mics are all now around the table that we're at instead of being off into the corners of the room. So it feels like we can actually have a discussion, you know?
So good segue. If you want to see pictures of us podcasting, pictures of the studio, that are happening, go to our Facebook page. It's The Green Gab on Facebook or at The Green Gab and check it out. There's all kinds of stuff up there. We also cross-post to the Green Home Coach Facebook page and Twitter. Actually, Green Home Coach has an Instagram feed now.
Oh, it does?
Yeah.
I didn't even know that.
I had somebody that offered to help me set it up. So
nice.
Like, cool. So we're getting out there, out on the social hosting world.
You know the one nice thing about being back here?
What? We
don't have all the people trying to wave at you while recording that we had at the home show.
That was hysterical.
I mean, they would just stop, look, wave.
I know. So in all fairness, since we just brought this up and nobody knows what we're talking about because you may be a brand new listener or you may not remember that far back, when we were recording at the St. Louis Home and Garden Show, we had a booth, and in the booth we had a 1974 Volkswagen Beetle where the front trunk had been converted to a mobile podcast studio. So it had a unit there with 4 microphone arms. So kind of think 4 spider arms coming out of the front of the trunk.
Yeah, and they were all those vintage-looking
they were really
microphones.
cool.
Though they were new because they all had like blue LEDs in them and everything.
They were awesome. So it was a showstopper. I mean, people would stop and gawk and ask about the VW. And what we didn't consider when we did that is having a person in the booth just to field questions, which we really should have done.
No, that's a good point.
Right. Because there was invariably somebody wanting to know about the VW or what we were doing or what was podcasting, and we're trying to record.
Yeah.
So we'd be recording, sitting in chairs around the front of this, staring into the trunk of this car, and people would come by waving, trying to get our attention, and we're sitting there trying to focus on what we're saying.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of fun. It was a big hoot. That is also up on the Facebook page if you want to go check it out. It's pretty hysterical. There's a bunch of Facebook Lives from the recordings. So, check it out, and you can see why it makes us chuckle.
Probably the best part of that whole experience was we didn't have far to go to get guests.
No, we didn't. And we really hope to be back for the 2018 Home and Garden Show. And if any of our listeners out there have a show that they would like us to come live podcast at, we'd love to talk with you because it's a lot of fun. It's a great way to capture permanent content from your event and really make it available not just to your members or your audience, but to the larger podcasting audience out there. And podcasting is just it's just a really cool medium. I mean, we all had this on-demand video in our homes and on our computers and stuff, and now you have this huge library of on-demand audio about just almost anything you can imagine.
That's
pretty cool stuff.
Yep.
Pretty cool stuff. Well, hey, we've got a guest on board to gab with today that I'm just super excited to introduce. Andy, you've been so very patient waiting for us to get through all of our jabber. How are you?
Well, it's been fun. I've spent some days at the St. Louis Home Show, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
There you go. Well, this past year was the 40th anniversary.
Oh, wow.
So they made a big to-do about it, and they just did a bang-up job. It was a really well-done show.
They had pictures from 40 of the past shows. They really wanted to tie in the old and the new. So when we said, hey, we got the 74 bug we want to bring down, they're like, oh, my God, it's perfect.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun.
It's always been a good show. I'm glad to hear they're keeping up the tradition.
It is. Thank you. And Andy, introduce yourself, please, so our listeners know who you are.
Happy to do so. Andy Armstrong. I am the Vice President of Sales and Marketing with Fujitsu General America. So I'm responsible for the sales of all the heating and air conditioning products from Fujitsu for the U.S. and Canada and down into the Caribbean.
Oh, wow. That's a little travel, huh?
Yeah. We try to make as many excuses as we can to go down to the Caribbean, but it's only a small part of the market, so we don't get down there too much. But it is a wonderful growing business, and we're seeing a lot of nice changes that we're real excited to talk to you about.
So explain a little bit more about what Fujitsu does in heating and cooling, because it may be a name that's not familiar to a lot of folks.
Absolutely. Fujitsu is a manufacturer of heating and air conditioning products. They're manufactured in Asia, and like many of the Asian products, they're a little bit different than what we're used to here in the United States. In the United States, because we had bigger homes and had a little bit different technology in the way we heated and cooled them, we're not quite used to this technology. And this technology is very much focused on getting the amount of heat or cool that you need to a specific space, as opposed to heating and cooling the entire home or the entire business. So we call the technology mini splits. Your listeners probably know them from walking into a room and seeing a unit hanging on the wall, which is how they were introduced originally. Now that can be delivered in a lot different ways. But you have your air handler inside hanging on a wall or in a different place, and then a separate unit outside that is doing the compressor function of that unit, condensing function, and getting that heating and cooling to your space very, very efficiently and very, very quietly.
Wow.
You made a comment about how, this is more Asian technology. So is this because of the size of domiciles over in Asia and in Europe, because it's higher density, kind of smaller space?
Absolutely. They very quickly started trying to find better ways to heat and cool than a window unit. As we all know, and there's several in this country too, with window units, they're loud, they block your view. They're not a great way to heat and cool, and they're not efficient at all. So in Japan, 50 years ago, they started to look for better ways to do that. 3 or 4 different companies, Fujitsu's being one of them, came up with better solutions. And this mini split concept with an outdoor unit that does the loud work of an air conditioner, the compressor and condensing, happens out there, and then just a quiet stream of air coming in on that indoor unit gives you much more concentrated comfort, puts the heat and the cool exactly where you want it, exactly when you want it, in a very quiet way. So in Japan and China and Europe, they've been using that for the last 40 and 50 years. And in the U.S., we're starting to figure out there's some real advantages to that as we try to get more green, and we can certainly explore that a little more today.
Absolutely. I keep having this term flash in my mind that's focused heating and cooling. And
yes,
it is a different concept than what so many Americans are used to with forced air heating and cooling systems. Big central systems.
Yeah, one of the ways I like to explain what we do at Fujitsu is I like to call us a BTU logistics company. And BTU is the unit of energy that we use to define how much heating or cooling you need in a given space. And what Fujitsu does really well is we move those BTUs around your house exactly how you need them when you need them. Unlike Asia and Europe, today they basically heat and cool rooms that you're in. We in the United States heat and cool homes and have the entire home heated and cooled, which is not a terribly green or efficient way to tackle comfort.
No, it's the just-in-case model.
Exactly. I may use that back bedroom someday, so it's going to be cool all the time.
Right.
Whereas 200 years ago, when it was all being heated by, fireplace, we would just shut down the rooms that we weren't using, close them down, and you just worry about heating the ones that mattered.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Old is new again, right?
That's right. Old never goes out.
The added complexity of we're not only heating the rooms, but we're also heating and cooling all that ductwork that's getting the air there. And that creates some losses, too, that we have to account for. And these new mini-split technologies allow us to eliminate that as well.
Yeah, don't get me started on ductwork yet. That'll get me into a whole nother conversation. When I moved cities, I learned a whole bunch of new things about ductwork, too, so...
Apparently, construction is not the same city to city.
It's not. No, you are absolutely correct. It's not. Well, I'm going to suggest we take a quick break. And when we come back, Andy, I want to hear more about how you got into heating and cooling. And we discovered earlier that we've got a common linkage in our past and a little bit of engineering in our backgrounds. And little St. Louis in all of our backgrounds, too. So when we come back, I would love to dig into that a little bit more.
Sounds great.
Hi, this is Art Maines from Scammercast.com, where we educate, inform, and protect our elders and those who care for them on the Two Guys Talking podcast network.
Wouldn't it be cool if your advertising could last forever? It can with perpetual advertising. Here's how it works. Unlike TV or radio ads, where every instance the ads are broadcast, they're only played once and lost forever. Perpetual advertising could have repeat exposure and replayability weeks, months, and even years after they're inserted in a podcast. So even if a podcast is a few years old, your ads will still be impactful to repeat listeners, as well as new listeners. This gives your advertising dollar the most bang for the buck. Find out more about perpetual advertising at twoguystalking.com/sponsors.
Hey, we're back gabbing today with Andy of Fujitsu. I'm going to say heating and cooling, even though that's not your official name. It helps me to remember. It helps me to remember where you are, because Fujitsu does have several different businesses, don't they?
Absolutely. And your listeners may know them best by computers and scanners and TVs and things like that.
That's right.
We're a separate division, but it is a global division, and we're number 2 or 3 in most markets in the world selling heating and air conditioning.
That's product diversification, right?
Absolutely.
It's a good thing. So we hinted before the break that you have a connection back to St. Louis, and we had a lot of fun discovering that you and I both went to the same school, albeit not at the same times. But
yeah, WashU Battling Bears.
Yep, the good old Bears, Washington University. Yeah, although these days I get kind of admonished. They're like, no, you got to say Washington University in St. Louis. So they've really branded that.
Nobody is going to mistake WashU in St. Louis for University of Washington.
But I can't tell you, because I grew up in Oklahoma, where I live now, gone back. And when I was going to school, so many people would say, you're going all the way out there? And I'm like, no, Missouri, St. Louis. And they're like, huh? But
we're going to the academic school.
Right. But in the 80s, Washington University didn't have, it was really just coming out of its commuter school status.
Sure.
Because the 70s were a really rough time for Washington University, and I actually was part of the group that helped to rebuild the Greek system, the fraternities and the sororities. We were the growing pledge classes.
Sure.
So probably by the time you got here, Andy, things were a little bit more stable. At least I hope so.
Yes, they were. The Greek system was strong, and I was a member as well, and I actually served on the interfraternity councils to help continue your good work. And we did grow it quite a bit those 4 years as well.
You wouldn't believe it now. It's robust, to say the least. You also said you were a member of 13, which I think is something very unique that Washington University does.
It really is. It's a leadership honorary, and every year they put on a carnival for a chosen charity. When I was there, our charity was cystic fibrosis, and we worked closely with the community to raise money and bring attention to that disease and how we could help solve the problems of those children who had the disease. And we were able to raise a bunch of money and all at the same time have a great event for the university. So I was very proud to be a part of that organization. We called them facades, and they would be little theaters that we would construct on the site for the 13 Carnival every year. And we'd have little 20-minute musical productions that were written and performed by a fraternity and a sorority that would team up together. And my son is at University of Missouri now, and they do a very similar thing for homecoming, where they do these little theater productions. So it's been quite fun to see that tradition go through different schools and different generations. And okay, you're going to have to help me with this one, Andy. It's either the longest running or the largest student-run carnival in the United States, but I don't remember which. I think at this stage, it's actually both.
There you go.
I can't see any other school having something like it. I really can't. Not for that long.
It's been amazing how well it's endured and how the carnival continues to be strong and how campus-wide it really is. There's so many different groups that get involved and participate, from the Greek system to all the specialty groups to the sporting teams. It's really kind of fun the way it all comes together, and the university really all celebrates that together.
So this is just case in point to our lovely listeners that engineering folks, Andy and I being examples of that, wait, Andy and me being examples of that, are not
we didn't say
all
English
just,
majors.
I know. We're not just sitting studying physics and calculus all the time. That was the coolest thing about Washington University. And I stayed involved as a volunteer until I moved last year from the day I graduated. So it's just been my second home for so long. But everyone there is so involved. And it didn't matter if you were an engineering student or a pre-med or an English major or a dance major. People had so many opportunities to be involved. And I think that's true at most universities. But there's just, that was a really cool way. I didn't experience that in high school, or anything close to that. So it was a really cool way to be a part of the St. Louis community and the Washington University community. So,
Marla, that's so true. And I've had the same experience with my daughter, who's at Loyola University in Chicago. And watching from the outside, I recognize how important those extracurriculars are in your overall education and how you develop as a person. And it's something I took for granted at the time. But looking back, I learned as much with 13 and with the fraternity and with football as I did in the classroom. And I think those are lessons you take on for a long time.
Yeah, and I know Tony has a very similar sentiment with his experience at St. Louis University. We'll give equal play here for a moment, Tony.
Well, don't forget, I'm a dual threat here. While I did undergrad at SLU, I did do graduate work in economics at WashU.
Is true.
So, ha ha.
Tony is a student of the world. He has studied many, many things. This is part of what got us going, was just these wonderful intellectual probing conversations that we would have every few weeks. And that was a big part of the precursor that led us to doing the Green Gab podcast together. So a little history there for you. So how did you end up with Fujitsu from Washington University Engineering School?
Well, I actually now I'm sneaking up on 30 years in the HVAC industry. I've worked in the distribution side of the business, which I did right out of college. Had an opportunity to take on a technical sales role and sold heating, air conditioning equipment to contractors from a distribution point in Springfield, Illinois. From there, I went to work for York International, a manufacturer of heating, air conditioning equipment in Norman, Oklahoma, as a matter of fact. So,
second tie-in.
Exactly. Recently, I came to work for Fujitsu after many years with York and Johnson Controls. And Fujitsu has been a really interesting change with the changing technology and the way ductless products, and we call them mini splits, we call them ductless, but the way they're really becoming a major part of what contractors are quoting for homeowners and building owners in the United States today. It's been fun to be part of that revolution.
Okay, so why is it a revolution?
It's a great question. And the reason it's a revolution is we have a lot of infrastructure in the United States that's designed around a single heat or cooling source blowing air through the entire building. And that's true in commercial buildings as well as residences. And that creates several problems. One is comfort, and the second is efficiency. And I'll give an example. I lived in Wildwoods in a 2-story home that was very, very similar to a lot of the homes being built in St. Louis and West County. Mm-hmm. And the homes are 2-story, and they have one furnace in the basement blowing hot and cold air. And generally, you get a temperature change between the upstairs and downstairs because the air stratifies. So it's very hard to keep the upstairs comfortable and keep the downstairs at a common temperature. And also, we're heating and cooling a lot of space that we're not living in. The average homeowner now lives in a 2,000 square foot home, but they only actually use 300 to 400 square feet on a daily basis. So it's kind of hard to justify heating all that extra space. So a great solution to that is something we've learned from ductless technology, where we can put exactly the amount of heating and cooling in any room in the house. And we can do that multiple different ways now with one-to-one indoor to outdoor units to just solve the heating and cooling need for the spaces we live in. Or we even have technologies now where you can put one outdoor unit and have up to 9 indoor units attached to that. So you can really customize and zone and really just use exactly the amount of heat or cool you need in any room in your house.
So what's the number one reason a homeowner would want this technology over what they're used to? And I say that because most contractors seem to default to forced air heating and cooling systems, central.
Yeah, there are a couple of answers to that question, Marla, and it's a tricky question because your comment about contractors is so true. The contractors are going to default to what they're comfortable with.
Right, what they know.
That's part of our challenge, too, is educating contractors to how this can be a better solution. As the revolution started, it was more about adding heating and cooling to those rooms that have never been comfortable. So a master bedroom, like my house in Wildwoods, it was never comfortable in the master bedroom because you'd have to get the downstairs at 65 to make the upstairs 72. So a mini split up there would give you exactly what you needed, and you could not worry about the rest of the house during that time. But now the idea is really more about what's an efficient solution, but remembering the major goal of heating and air conditioning, and that's to be comfortable.
Right.
So many of us think that to be green, we have to be uncomfortable, and that's really not true.
Yeah.
We can make better decisions about technology and make better decisions about how we use technology. And that's about education. And that's our challenge, to make sure that we continue to educate not only contractors, but upstream through distributors and people who are supporting those contractors, making sure that everyone has that information to let homeowners make good choice about what is really the right solution based on their needs.
Well, I've got one quick question. What I'm seeing and what I hear talking to builders, and, we work with probably 50, 60 builders here in the St. Louis market. Codes are always evolving and codes are constantly changing. And especially when it comes to HVAC, where everything has to be zoned, and then the ductwork, all the ductwork has to be sealed. And I've watched them painting the joints sitting there for hours, getting everything ready with the mastic and everything before they even start to assemble it all. And I had a HVAC contractor tell me, people are starting to question the cost of putting in that infrastructure. And this is why, because of, these code requirements. So it sounds to me like the mini split technology helps to avoid a lot of that.
Absolutely. And one of the fallacies about mini splits is that the only way you can deliver air to a room is by that box hanging on the wall. And a lot of people don't like that architecturally, and it doesn't fit their design scheme. Today, we have solutions that include cassettes that mount into the ceiling. We have the ceiling mounts that will mount not flush with the ceiling, but hanging from the ceiling. We have the wall mounts. We have floor console mounts that look more like a radiator that used to be in homes with boilers. And then we also have ducted versions, so we can take a space above a closet or above in an attic and actually deliver air to a couple of rooms from that ducted piece. So we have a lot of ways we can deliver that air. But your point on ducting is really becoming more and more of an issue. We have to spend so much time building the duct, insulating it, and then sealing it, and that's an expensive process.
And it's rarely done. It's rarely done well the first time. So much rework comes with the duct system.
Especially now with codes becoming more stringent when it comes to this stuff, having the properly trained HVAC installation team is tantamount to success.
So when you say a ducted system, Andy, is it the traditional kinds of ductwork that we're used to seeing with a central forced air system, or is it a different kind of ductwork?
Well, it can be both. We make our air handlers as small as half a ton, which would do a small bedroom, all the way up to doing an entire house. So we can meet that need, and sometimes that's important for specific reasons of the way your outdoor unit's set up or the efficiency you're looking for. The idea is if you are doing a master bedroom, you still need to cool that master bath. And so sometimes doing a small ducted system where you only have 6 foot of total duct is a whole lot better than running duct through the entire house.
Gotcha.
That makes sense.
I just wanted to make one more point on the ducting. When you think about ducting and whole home ducting, you're not only worried about the insulation and the mastic for sealing, but then we have to have the energy to move that air all through the house. And that's a very expensive proposition over time. So the efficiency of your systems actually improve greatly if you're just moving a little bit of a refrigerant around as opposed to blowing all that air through the entire house. So just another piece to consider as you're making that choice between ducted or the newer ductless technology.
So when we come back from our break, Andy, I really want to explore a little bit more how we can give a benefit or two that a homeowner is going to get super excited about, so they're going to want to go talk to their HVAC contractor or their builder or their remodeler and say, hey, I heard about this awesome thing and I need you to check into it for me. So think on that one, and we'll dive in a little bit more in our next segment.
You got it.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Thought about a career in voiceover? Need a great, cost-effective on-hold message for your organization or business? Don't know where to start? Check out The Voice Farm, your one-stop shop for voiceover needs. Check it out now by accessing The Voice Farm at voicefarmers.com and see what difference can be made with a company that is truly outside the box. From the Voice Box, voicefarmers.com. That's voicefarmers.com.
Things in 1982 were a lot more simple. BMX bikes, the Versailles apartment complex in Schaumburg, Illinois, the sweet, innocent kiss of Andrea Schaefer, and of course, a little film from a man named Steven Spielberg called E.T. Science fiction, the detail of a broken but still together family, the relationships that were made when you were 12, ones that are never again truly realized. It seems a lot heavier than most remember, but all of these things and more await you in the Two Guys Talking perspective review of Steven Spielberg's E.T. 1982 on the Two Guys Talking Podcast Network. Check it out now at twoguystalking.com. That's the number 2, guystalking.com.
Gabbing away about green heating and cooling. Is that such a thing, green heating and cooling?
Yes, there is. I mean,
well, we're going to make it a thing.
Anything that goes into construction nowadays has the possibility of being green.
Yeah, absolutely true. Absolutely true.
It's all about energy efficiency, resource efficiency.
But I love,
all ties together.
Andy, I love what you're saying about being efficient by delivering what is needed where it's needed.
It's a very important piece of the puzzle, and it's something that we just didn't worry too much about in the beginning phases of especially air conditioning in this country. And the infrastructure now is a little outdated and a little more difficult to deliver what homeowners are wanting today with green, sustainable solutions.
So a lot of my business, I end up working with people to get over the technical side and let's talk to homeowners about what they really want, which is the benefits that they get from green and sustainable solutions. And the real irony with this that I don't think a lot of the home building industry has really truly embraced yet is that they all want the same thing. We all want the same thing. And we have no clue that it happens to come from a green and sustainable solution, but it does. But we all want to be comfortable. We all want to be healthier. We all want to be safer. We all want to do it for as little money as we can and using our resources as wisely as we can. We don't want to spend a lot of time taking care of it, and we want it to last and be easy to take care of. And we all want those things, a different order, different priorities. But I haven't yet met a homeowner that says, oh, please give me a home that I have to spend all my weekends taking care of.
And all my money to maintain it.
Yeah. So there's a real shift in the home industry that has started, and I'm sure you guys see this in spades, that it's not completely there yet. We still have a communication gap as far as I'm concerned. So
I'm
there's my 2 cents.
That phrase, Marla, because that sums it up so well, is that communication gap and getting our channel, our distribution and our contractors and homeowners all to get on the same page and understand what each other are looking for and how they can deliver those benefits most effectively is one of the most challenging things we do. And we spend a lot of time training, helping contractors to ask the right question, to help homeowners make better decisions on how to be green and sustainable, and yet not give up what they're really looking for, which is comfort in a home they want to live in.
Well, and maybe part of that conversation is flipping that, helping contractors to understand how to make their clients more comfortable and happier, and it just happens to be green and sustainable. I don't know.
Yeah, it really is, Marla, and so often the contractors are so busy and talk about a tough job. Yeah. You're out in the middle of St. Louis heat and St. Louis humidity in the middle of August and have 500 customers who want to be cool, and you're running trying to get all of them taken care of. And that can be very challenging. And to take those extra 10 minutes to talk about better solutions and greener solutions and more comfortable solutions and lower utility bills can be challenging because you just want to get to the next job and keep everybody happy. But that's the challenge contractors are starting to learn to overcome and do a better job of just asking a few questions. What are your real goals? What do you want to accomplish with your comfort system? What type of utility bills do you want? What type of sustainability is important to you? And with those questions, you can very quickly eventually come to solutions that really start looking at ductless technology as the best solution to gain those benefits.
Well, and to me, you made a fascinating point, because you talked about how the contractor, let's say the HVAC contractor, he just needs to get to the next job. Mm-hmm. He has to deal with the service and the repair and that side of it, while also helping the builder deal with his rough-in schedule for all the ductwork, correct? And we all know employment in the trades is not increasing. It's decreasing.
It's aging.
It's decreasing. It's harder and harder to people get engaged in the trades. The industry is, in St. Louis especially, is doing all these outreach programs to trade schools. Basically anything it can do to say, hey, come into the trades, we need help. Well, if I look at that and I know there's going to be less and less manpower, maybe this is one of the solutions for that. Ductless technology means less labor for building the house, which means, well, great, I don't have that labor anyway. Now I can focus it more on the repair and the installation side of the existing homes. That's a possibility.
Good point. Yeah. One of the additional points there is, although it's not a video game, many of our products with the mini split technology are a lot more electronic in nature, in that we have web apps, so you can go to your phone and control your unit. And we find that our younger technicians adopt to that very quickly and enjoy talking to the homeowners about, hey, let me show you what you can do on your iPhone to control this from 700 miles away. And that's the part of the technology and part of the HVAC world that we have to do a better job of educating younger people that, hey, there's a lot of fun to be had in this space too, and a lot of fun toys to play with.
There you go.
Well, and that would tie into, what we do as a company. We are the integrators that tie all the systems together in the home into that single app, that single controller. So I'm guessing your stuff would also play well in that field, correct?
Yes. Yeah, that's almost becoming a must in our space, to find ways to talk to other systems. And initially, the Asian technology had a hard time communicating on other channels, but that's getting better every year.
Well, and I always joke with Marla, it's the integrator that's going to take over the house during the construction phase. It's already started, but especially over the next 5 years, because, as I like to say, the plumber doesn't want to be responsible for the phone call when the cable goes out, and the HVAC guy doesn't want to be responsible for when the internet goes down. So who is? Yeah, the technology integrator who's already in the house.
Yep.
Yeah, and I love this idea, though, and I'm seeing this with other parts of the home, is that we can swap out advanced technologies, materials, and systems for labor. We've actually, and Tony and I have had this conversation before, and we've had it with other people as well, that a lot of us feel that's what's going to truly drive homes to change and how they're built is likely the labor shortage.
Yes.
And I'm sure y'all are feeling it as well as everybody else. But I love the idea with you guys being more tech-focused, and I've got to guess that you are a big hit in the younger technology. They speak technology as a first language. We don't. We learned it. It was translated for us. But my kids, oh my gosh, they just think it. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure you see that with your younger techs.
Yeah, absolutely. And the labor issue is going to be a problem for the industry. There's no question. And
it already is.
It's universal.
It is.
It's not something that's just in the St. Louis market there. And it's something we are challenged with. And one thing that is nice about the ductless technology is it is significantly less labor. You take the ductwork out, even in a retrofit situation, it's a quick in and out solution in most cases, and can quite often get in and out the same day or in a couple of days, where it might take 3 to 5 days for the ducted system. So shrinking that labor and solving more problems faster in a sustainable way is always a good thing. If
you're in a home and you're replacing a traditional central ducted heating and cooling system, can that be done?
Absolutely. In fact, I'm about ready to do it to my new home here in New Jersey. It's a 80-year-old home and has a 30-year-old HVAC system that's very traditional in nature, all ducted. And the typical problems you have with some rooms are comfortable, some aren't, just uneven temperature, and it's very hard to balance that out and make it work. So we're putting in a system, and this is the new VRF type solution, so variable refrigerant flow, which is a newer technology to the ductless world. So you're actually putting as many as 9 indoor heads on 1 outdoor, so you can do the whole home. I'll have some of those that are actually ducted, many that'll just be hanging on the wall. I think I'll do a couple of ceiling cassettes as well in my office and a couple of other spaces, but very different type solution. But yeah, absolutely, it can be done, and quite often is a great way to solve problems in older homes.
I've heard that before. So do you leave the old ductwork in there, or do you take it out, or does it matter?
I will be taking out some. The stuff that I can see and is in my way in the basement where I bump my head in my workshop, it's going away.
That's
in
important.
the attic, I could care less. It'll stay.
No, that makes sense.
No reason to get up and play in the attic if you don't have to.
Exactly. It's not my favorite place.
Yeah. I mean, the fascinating thing is that, should people decide that ducted systems are the way they want to go, there's better solutions for ducted systems. Should people be ready to embrace a more modern approach, then there's more modern approaches. And I do love the fact that we are becoming more solutions so you can pinpoint what works best in your particular situation. But of course, that makes it more challenging for the contractor because they've got to know more solutions, I guess.
Are you seeing more market penetration right now on single-family homes versus, lofts, condos, things like that?
It all depends on the geography. New York City, the lofts and the condos are going crazy. You go out to the Pacific Northwest, that market is probably one of the most saturated for the ductless products. And when you think about the cooling load, it got started out there because people added cooling to those homes in a very simple way. They'd put just a unit in their master bedroom because you only needed it 3 weeks a year. So they started with that. Now they've expanded and they've started using that a lot more in that market as the contractors got more comfortable. So it really varies market to market.
Makes sense.
And in the Midwest, it's a little slower catching on, and people use mini splits more to do the sunroom or a master bedroom that's not cooling very well. But multifamily, it's becoming a lot more popular because we can put one unit on the balcony and heat and cool the entire condo. So lots of opportunities there to think differently about how we supply comfort.
Lots and lots to think about, and I am fascinated with it all.
I really want to thank you both, Marla and Tony, for doing the hardest part, and that's educating homeowners on how to make better decisions. And as you said, keeping a ducted system may be the best choice. Changing out to a new ducted system may be looking at ductless technology. The important thing is to educate yourself and be able to make a better decision and work through that with your contractor so you get what's really best for you based on what you're looking for in your home. So thank you for getting the word out for us.
Well, thank you. So where do people find you and find more information about how to start approaching this decision if they are in their own homes?
A couple of ways to go about it. First of all, we have an 800 number, and we will help you find a contractor who can help you talk through ductless solutions, and that number is 888-888-3424. Again, 888-888-3424. Or even easier, just go to constantcomfort.com, all one word. Okay. That's constantcomfort.com.
I will take a look at that, and we'll make sure that gets in the podcast notes. And I would encourage all of our listeners, home building is really on, and remodeling, not just home building. And Tony and I both are huge advocates of what I call greening as you go, or incremental green. So every time you make a repair, replacement, or maintenance choice, do it a little better. And looking at a different system when you're planning. So I'm a big advocate of planning. So what do you do when your hot water heater goes out? What do you do when your heating and cooling system goes out? What do you do when the dishwasher goes out? So if you think ahead and you have this plan, even though it's going to change, you at least have a start. And I would encourage our listeners to look into this ductless technology, understand what it's all about. I know a lot of people that have used it in combination with other technologies as well, depending on the climate. And everything is so climate and regional specific. But I'm going to guess you've got well-educated, helpful contractors across the country, because our listeners are across the country. And this phone number will be the place to find someone to help, right?
Absolutely. Or on Constant Comfort, just look for our elite contractors.
Okay.
They're the premium contractors who've committed to training and have multiple installs under their belt. Elite Fujitsu contractors are a great way to be sure you're getting a premium player in your market.
Well, I'm excited to dig in too. obviously did a little bit of my homework, but there's always more to be done.
Half the battle is just knowing there's another choice out there.
So true.
And if you don't even know it exists, you'll never even think about it.
What? We don't know what we don't know?
Exactly.
I know. Oh, wait. That was a lot of no's in one sentence.
No, it wasn't.
Well, whatever. But it is true. And that is a huge goal of the Green Gab podcast, is just to help people learn something a little new, learn something that you didn't know before, and have an opportunity to pursue it. And we thank you for contributing to that. The expertise and the contributions that you as our guest makes on the show is what makes it what it is. So we really do thank you for your time.
Yep. Thanks for coming on.
Absolutely a pleasure to be with you both, and really enjoyed the conversation, and look forward to chatting again sometime soon.
Well, thank you so much, Andy and Tony. We are signing off on the Green Gab, and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Green Gab podcast, and for joining us on our own personal Green Odyssey as we change the world one Green Gab podcast at a time. What did you learn about during this episode? Tell us now by visiting our website at greengabpodcast.com. And remember to connect with us via iTunes, Facebook, and Twitter. Links to do all of this are at our website, greengabpodcast.com. Thanks for listening, but more importantly, thanks for rocking it in green.